Hari Om and Jai Shri Krishna, everyone. Gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to session 11 of our online Gita Parayan and Satsang. As we begin, just a quick announcement. Please mark your calendar for the next big upcoming Gita Jayanti event, which is the Sampurna Gita Parayan of all of the 18 chapters of the Gita on the 1st of December. If you have not registered yet, please do register. Please request your friends and family also to register. So today is session 11 of online Gita Parayan, and coincidentally, it also turns out to be Ekadashi. So 11-11. So this is our 11-11. And I will invite Arjunji and Remaji, who are going to be our chanters for the day, to kick us off on this holy day by chanting the opening prayers.
Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Vidyam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Viddhishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shuklam Bharadharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvavighnopashantaye. Saraswati Namastubhyam Bharade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhirbhavatu me sada. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha.
Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam.
We will shortly have the Gita Dhyanam. Before we have the Gita Dhyanam, I would like to welcome K.V. Rao, who is the chairman of Aurobindo Society, Singapore, to deliver his welcome address. K.V. Rao is very well known in Singapore, needs no introduction. He is, as you can see, the chairman of Sri Aurobindo Society, Singapore. Also, he is the president of Singapore Indian Fine Arts Society, or SIFAS, as it is very popularly known. Shri Rao has worked in diversified industries. He's in various leadership positions, including a stint with the Singapore Civil Service as a director of International Enterprise Singapore. He's a much sought after speaker and blogger, so we are really happy to have him here today. Sir, please welcome and please deliver your welcome.
Thank you, Anand, and good morning. It's actually a privilege to join anything to do with the Gita Jayanti, any shape, form, or time, because this is something so close to heart. And in Singapore, there is so much of, I would say, inner affection to the cause by many of you who are here. And today, I think the theme of the conversation that Puneet, my very young friend, who has done some amazing work on the Gita and absorbing the meaning, and has actually published a book in Hindi in poetry form, rendering the Gita, which is an amazing piece of work. And it's so nice to see Puneet and also Anand here for the first time. I see two Anands. One is Anand Patel, of course, from our Gujarati Association and Sri Aurobindo Society, and a new Anand, from Gita Jayanti that I see such lovely younger set of people. I won't say next gen as such, but almost the next gen. So the cause of the Gita Jayanti in Singapore is a blessed cause. Such new people who are passionate, knowledgeable, who come into the movement is also a blessing of a kind from the Almighty Lord Krishna himself, that he wants that people in Singapore, we realize and we connect with the message of the Gita. It gives me, as I said, tremendous pleasure, and I tried to look through a little bit about what Sri Aurobindo's interpretation and touch points have been. Because when I look at Gita, my real battle is which chapter of Gita is more important than the other. Every chapter seems more important than the other. In my lifetime so far, I have not been able to conclude to say that this chapter is less important than the other. And Kurukshetra, in a very symbolic sense, is our life itself, each one of us life. And our life is a battle. It's never been easy, you see. And now with all that's happening in the world, it's becoming even bigger battle than what it was. With technology, disruption. One side there is good, one side there is bad, one side there is war, one side there is peace, one side there is innovation, the other side there is complete destruction. So the world we live is actually a Kurukshetra only for us. Even personally, the life that we lead, even at my age, when I'm a grandfather, the kind of things that one sees in one's own life and family and immediate friends and others, there is so much of strife. And therefore, when you pick up the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, it is always like, as I said, it's the best book ever written on human psychology and the best antidepressive you can find ever at all. And each chapter is like a dosage which can lift you out of your gloom and show you the light, if only one approaches it with a view to self-reflect. The most important thing that we sometimes miss in the Gita is we do everything except reflecting. I'm not pointing it out as an objection, but also for a reflection that Parayan is one form of devotion, reading is one form of devotion, intellectualizing it is another form of devotion. But if you put the Gita like a mirror in front of you and look at your own self in that mirror, you will see a lot more. And it is truly something that is impactful and works on you when you're able to see that as a mirror. So let me now take you to the chapter on 17, which is actually a chapter in Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo has written such a powerful articles which came in the form of a book called Essays on the Gita. Let me tell you, trying to attempt reading that is high voltage. Very high voltage, because you need to connect from a Vedic thought point, the Upanishadic thought point, and his own spiritual understanding and realizations, which he has embedded in the essays on the Gita, which is very powerful, very, very powerful. And it takes time. So what I thought I will do is that chapter 17, since Puneet will be speaking about it, I'll just give a very few broad strokes of how Sri Aurobindo has talked about. He calls this chapter, and his message has always been a message of evolutionary change. A human being is not the final, and we have to evolve into divine beings. And that has been what Sri Aurobindo's entire emphasis is. So what chapter 17 does, in very simple words, is a book of transformation. How do we bring change within ourselves? How do we grow into better people, better human beings, and more divinize ourselves? The final teaching is, of course, on chapter 18, but chapter 17 is about how do you purify your life, how do you harmonize your life, and how are you going to get yourself ready for that divine realization. So there's a lot of things which have been said in this chapter about sattva, rajas, and tamas, which I'm sure Puneet will deal with it. But there are two sets of meanings to this. One set of the meaning, when we talk about the gunas, the tamas, the rajas, the sattva, and what is it in purification. The literal meaning in some of these, this chapter particularly, can bring you to food, like ahara, things like discipline, which is your tapas, dana, giving, and yagna, which is sacrifice. These are the four elements. Now, what Sri Aurobindo does is he lifts this a little beyond the literal meaning of what is said in our in most interpretations. His interpretation, he says, it is actually chapter 17 actually helps you to examine and assess the quality of your faith. How strong is your faith itself? And when we talk about ahara, mostly we talk about what we eat, you see. Sri Aurobindo lifts it to saying that everything that enters the human consciousness is ahara. What are the thoughts that you feed in your mind? What do you allow it to come inside? How do you control? How do you sort of do a gatekeeping on that kind of it? So everything that goes into the mind is a form of ahara. Whatever goes into the consciousness is ahara. Any vibration from outside that is coming in. Such a beautiful interpretation. He lifts it up. And he says, what you give out, which is the offering which I talked about in a normal sense, is all the vibrations, the words, the thoughts, the meaning, the way we live and interact with humanity as a whole is what we give out. That is where I think there is a need for one to be more reflective. And that is the sanctification. The more you sanctify and give out more pure vibrations, whether it is your own spouse, your child, your family, your parent, your neighbor, if it comes from an inner sense of well-being, goodness, and spirituality, it has a much greater impact. And last but not the least, this whole journey of life is to uplift from where we are born, where we are stuck, and to grow and move upwards. And that is where Sri Aurobindo says in this particular chapter is where we act and where we aspire. Now, no transformation happens for anybody, no change comes up unless you have a very strong aspiration. It is not ambition. Aspiration, in Sri Aurobindo's words, is like the deepam that actually you light, and it always burns upwards straight towards the divine in a golden light. And it is living, it is burning. You can put your hand in between, and again it comes back into the same shape, which is something that is the aspiration. And it says that is the aspiration, and the actions that follow is what summarizes in a very few words how this reading of this chapter can actually bring about the three gunas, the transformation in the three gunas, and how do we sort of move in an upward sort of manner. And then he talks about the Om Tat Sat, which I think, Puneet, you will cover it. But I'm saying that together they remind us that every human action can be amplified. Every human action can be amplified, can be purified, and aligned with the higher purpose. So one great basis of Sri Aurobindo's thought has always been, and he uses the Gita in a very, very proactive and very powerful manner, is that this spiritual life doesn't sit outside a normal life. It is not something you do Saturday, Sunday morning, 3 hours like gym, and the rest of the life carries on. He says all this is one whole, complete, and you have to approach life without exception and change every bit of what you have within you to be able to bring this transformation. So I just want to close it with some of his paragraphs in that chapter in which he wrote about it. He says Gita is not an escape and withdrawal from life. We think, oh, it's all over. Now let me take the Bhagavad Gita and sit under the tree and then, I'm fine. No, it is not an escape. It is not giving you a get pass to get out of life. What it does is sit where you are, do what you are doing, transform it. And how do you transform that? It is to spiritualize your action, bring a discipline, devotion, and faith. Why? Why? He says, because you are a vessel, you are a receptacle made of the divine. You are a receptacle of the divine. You have been created for that purpose. And that vessel cannot be empty. You cannot have only few drops. It is there for transformation. You are here for that purpose. And what chapter 17 does, in my words, we all like modern words, like it provides the blueprint. How do you follow this in your day-to-day life? Because one thing that is great about, I started by saying Gita can be a medicine, but most medicines have expiry date, as you know, right? And we human beings also have expiry dates which we cannot read. There is a date I'm carrying. I don't know. I can't somehow read that. Nobody can read it unless astrologers will say you will die on so and so day, right? but the truth is, the Bhagavad Gita has had no expiry date, and it will not have. So, dear friends, I think it's a great week of the Gita Jayanti where we start reflecting on those thoughts. And reflection, realization, and transformation, these are the three words. We have to think about it. We have to realize where we are, and then we have to commit ourselves to bring that change that we are looking forward to. With that, thank you very much. It's a great opportunity, Mr. Srinivasan and others who have given me to share a few thoughts. I wish we had 17 at least participants. We are short of 2, we are 50. So we have some more progress to make. And with that, I wish all the best. And Puneet, I would come back and listen to you. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. Thank you so much for the beautiful and thought-provoking welcome address. Now, what's on my mind is, if the appetizer is so wonderful, how is the main course going to be from Puneetji? So that's what's on my mind. So, but before we get to the main course, we are going to do Gita Dhyanam. We're going to do a Parayan of chapter 17 and selected slokas from chapter 18, and then we will proceed on to our main course. I will now invite mother-son duo, Ramaji and Arjunji, to please begin chanting of the Gita Dhyanam, followed by chapters 17, 18, and Gita Mahatmya. I will just bring that up on screen so that everyone can follow.
ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे फुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्र येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयः प्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमहरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरणनदी कैवर्तः केशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलम् गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटम् नानाख्यानककेसरम् हरिकथा सम्बोधना बोधितम् लोके सज्जनषट्पदैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारतपङ्कजं कलिमलप्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। अथ सप्तदशोऽध्यायः श्रद्धात्रयविभागयोगः अर्जुन उवाच ये शास्त्रविधिमुत्सृज्य यजन्ते श्रद्धयान्विताः तेषां निष्ठा तु का कृष्ण सत्त्वमाहोरजस्तमः श्रीभगवानुवाच त्रिविधा भवति श्रद्धा देहिनां सा स्वभावजा सात्विकी राजसी चैव तामसी चेति तां शृणु सत्त्वानुरूपा सर्वस्य श्रद्धा भवति भारत श्रद्धामयोऽयं पुरुषः यो यच्छ्रद्धः स एव सः यजन्ते सात्विका देवान् यक्षरक्षांसि राजसाः प्रेतान् भूतगणांश्चान्ये यजन्ते तामसा जनाः अशास्त्रविहितं घोरं तप्यन्ते ये तपो जनाः दम्भाहङ्कारसंयुक्ताः कामरागबलान्विताः कर्षयन्तः शरीरस्थं भूतग्राममचेतसः मां चैवान्तः शरीरस्थं तान् विद्यासुरनिश्चयान् आहारस्त्वपि सर्वस्य त्रिविधो भवति प्रियः यज्ञस्तपस्तथा दानं तेषां भेदमिमं शृणु आयुः सत्त्वबलारोग्यसुखप्रीतिविवर्धनाः रस्याः स्निग्धाः स्थिरा हृद्याः आहाराः सात्विकप्रियाः कट्वं ललवणात्युष्णतीक्ष्णरूक्षविदाहिनः आहारा राजसस्येष्टाः दुःखशोकामयप्रदाः यातयामं गतरसं पूतिपर्युषितं च यत् उच्छिष्टमपि चामेध्यं भोजनं तामसप्रियम् अफलाकाङ्क्षिभिर्यज्ञः विधितृष्टो य इज्यते यष्टव्यवेमेति मनः समाधाय स सात्विकः अभिसन्धाय तु फलम् दम्भार्थमपि चैव यत् इज्यते भरतश्रेष्ठ तं यज्ञं विद्धि राजसम् विधिहीनमसृष्टान्नम् मन्त्रहीनमदक्षिणम् श्रद्धाविरहितं यज्ञम् तामसं परिचक्षते देवद्विजगुरुप्राज्ञपूजनं शौचमार्जवम् ब्रह्मचर्यमहिंसा च शारीरं तप उच्यते अनुद्वेगकरं वाक्यं सत्यं प्रियहितं च यत् स्वाध्यायाभ्यसनं चैव वाङ्मयं तप उच्यते मनः प्रसादः सौम्यत्वं मौनमात्मविनिग्रहः भावसंशुद्धिरित्येतत् तपोमानसमुच्यते श्रद्धया परया तप्तं तपस्तत्त्रिविधं नरैः अफलाकाङ्क्षिभिर्युक्तैः सात्विकं परिचक्षते सत्कारमानपूजार्थं तपोदम्भेन चैव यत् क्रियते तदिह प्रोक्तं राजसं चलमध्रुवम् मूढग्राहेणात्मनो यत् पीडया क्रियते तपः परस्योत्सादनार्थं वा तत्तामसमुदाहृतम् दातव्यमिति यद्दानं दीनतेनुपकारिणे देशे काले च पात्रे च तद्दानं सात्विकं स्मृतम् यत्तु प्रत्युपकारार्थं फलमुद्दिश्य वा पुनः दीयते च परिक्लिष्टं तद्दानं राजसंस्मृतम् अदेशकाले यद्दानम् अपात्रेभ्यश्च दीयते असत्कृतमवज्ञातं तत्तामसमुदाहृतम् ॐ तत्सदिति निर्देशः ब्रह्मणस्त्रिविधः स्मृतम् ब्राह्मणास्तेन वेदाश्च यज्ञाश्च विहिताः पुरा तस्मादोमित्युदाहृत्य यज्ञदानतपः क्रियाः प्रवर्तन्ते विधानोक्ताः सततं ब्रह्मवादिनां तदित्यनाभिसन्धाय फलं यज्ञतपः क्रियाः दानः क्रियाश्च विविधाः क्रियन्ते मोक्षकाङ्क्षिभिः सद्भावे साधुभावे च सदित्येतत् प्रयुज्यते प्रशस्ते कर्मणि तथा सच्छब्दः पार्थ युज्यते यज्ञे तपसि दाने च स्थितिः सदिति चोच्यते कर्म चैव तदर्थीयम् सदित्येवाभिधीयते अश्रद्धया हुतं दत्तं तपस्तप्तं कृतं च यत् असदित्युच्यते पार्थ न च तत्प्रेत्य नो इह ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे श्रद्धात्रयविभागयोगो नाम सप्तदशोऽध्यायः।
अथ अष्टादशोऽध्यायः अर्जुन मोक्षसंन्यासयोगः। अर्जुन उवाच सन्न्यासस्य महाबाहो तत्त्वमिच्छामि वेदितुम् त्यागस्य च ऋषिकेश पृथक् केशिनिषूदन। श्रीभगवानुवाच काम्यानां कर्मणान्यासम् सन्न्यासं कवयो विदुः सर्वकर्मफलत्यागम् प्राहुस्त्यागं विचक्षणाः। त्याज्यं दोषवदित्येके कर्म प्राहुर्मनीषिणः। यज्ञदानतपः कर्म न त्याज्यमिति चापरे। निश्चयं शृणु मे तत्र त्यागे भरतसत्तम। त्यागो हि पुरुषव्याघ्र त्रिविधः सम्प्रकीर्तितः। यज्ञदानतपः कर्म न त्याज्यं कार्यमेव तत्। यज्ञो दानं तपश्चैव पावनानि मनीषिणाम्। एतान्यपि तु कर्माणि सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलानि च कर्तव्यानीति मे पार्थ निश्चितं मतमुत्तमम्। नियतस्य तु सन्न्यासः कर्मणो नोपपद्यते मोहात् तस्य परित्यागः तामसः परिकीर्तितः। दुःखमित्येव यत्कर्म कायक्लेशभयात् त्यजेत् स कृत्वा राजसं त्यागम् नैव त्यागफलं लभेत्। कार्यमित्येव यत्कर्म नियतं क्रियतेऽर्जुन सङ्गं त्यक्त्वा फलं चैव सत्यागः सात्विको मतः। न द्वेष्ट्य कुशलं कर्म कुशलेनानुषज्यते त्यागी सत्त्वसमाविष्टः मेधावी छिन्न संशयः। न हि देहभृता शक्यं त्यक्तुं कर्माण्यशेषतः। यस्तु कर्मफलत्यागी सत्यागीत्यभिधीयते। अनिष्टमिष्टं मिश्रं च त्रिविधं कर्मणः फलम् भवत्यत्यागिनां प्रीत्य न तु सन्न्यासिनां क्वचित्। पञ्चैतानि महाबाहो कारणानि निबोध मे। साङ्ख्ये कृतान्ते प्रोक्तानि सिद्धये सर्वकर्मणाम्। अधिष्ठानं तथा कर्ता कारणं च पृथग्विधम्। विविधाश्च पृथक् चेष्टाः दैवं चैवात्र पञ्चमम्। शरीरवाङ्मनोभिर्यते कर्म प्रारभते नरः न्याय्यं वा विपरीतं वा पञ्चैते तस्य हेतवः तत्रैवं सति कर्तारम् आत्मानं केवलं तु यः पश्यत्यकृतबुद्धित्वात् न स पश्यति दुर्मतिः यस्य नाहङ्कृतो भावः बुद्धिर्यस्य न लिप्यते हत्वापि स इमान् लोकान् न हन्ति न निबध्यते ज्ञानं ज्ञेयं परिज्ञाता त्रिविधा कर्म चोदना करणं कर्म कर्तेति त्रिविधः कर्म सङ्ग्रहः ज्ञानं कर्म च कर्ता च त्रिधैव गुणभेदतः प्रोच्यते गुणसङ्ख्याने यथावत् शृणुतान्यपि सर्वभूतेषु येनैकम् भावमव्ययमीक्षते अविभक्तं विभक्तेषु तज्ज्ञानं विद्धि सात्विकम् पृथक्त्वेन तु यज्ञानम् नानाभावान् पृथग्विधान् वेत्ति सर्वेषु भूतेषु तज्ज्ञानं विद्धि राजसम् यत्तु कृत्स्नवदेकस्मिन् कार्ये सक्तमहैतुकम् अतत्त्वार्थवदल्पं च तत्तामसमुदाहृतम् नियतं सङ्गरहितम् अरागद्वेषतः कृतम् अफलप्रेप्सुना कर्म यत्तत् सात्विकमुच्यते यत्तु कामेप्सुना कर्म साहङ्कारेण वा पुनः क्रियते बहुलायासम् तद्राजसमुदाहृतम् अनुबन्धं क्षयं हिंसाम् अनवीक्ष च पौरुषम् मोहादारभ्यते कर्म यत्तत्तामसमुच्यते मुक्तसङ्गो नहं वादी धृत्युत्साहसमन्वितः सिद्ध्यसिद्ध्योर्निर्विकारः कर्ता सात्विक उच्यते रागी कर्मफलप्रेप्सुः लुब्धो हिंसात्मको शुचिः हर्षशोकान्वितः कर्ता राजसः परिकीर्तितः अयुक्तः प्राकृतस्तब्धः शठो नैष्कृतिको लसः विषादी दीर्घसूत्री च कर्ता तामस उच्यते बुद्धेर्भेदं धृतेश्चैव गुणतस्त्रिविधं शृणु प्रोच्यमानमशेषेण पृथक्त्वेन धनञ्जय प्रवृत्तिं च निवृत्तिं च कार्याकार्ये भयाभये बन्धं मोक्षं च या वेत्ति बुद्धिः सा पार्थ सात्विकी ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः अथ गीतामाहात्म्यम् गीताशास्त्रमिदं पुण्यम् यः पठेत् प्रयतः पुमान् विष्णोः पदमवाप्नोति भयशोकादिवर्जितः गीताध्ययनशीलस्य प्राणायामपरस्य च नैव सन्ति हि पापानि पूर्वजन्मकृतानि च मलनिर्मोचनं पुंसां जलस्नानं दिने दिने सकृद्गीताम्भसि स्नानम् संसारमलनाशनम् गीता सुगीता कर्तव्या किमन्यैः शास्त्रविस्तरैः या स्वयं पद्मनाभस्य मुखपद्माद्विनिसृता भारतामृतसर्वस्वम् विष्णोर्वक्त्राद्विनिसृतम् गीता गङ्गोदकं पीत्वा पुनर्जन्म न विद्यते सर्वोपनिषदो गावः दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत् एकं शास्त्रं देवकीपुत्रगीतम् एको देवो देवकीपुत्र एव एको मन्त्रस्तस्य नामानि यानि कर्माप्येकं तस्य देवस्य सेवा ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Remaji and Arjunji, for that beautiful, slow-paced rendering so that we could all follow along. Thank you so much. We are now proceeding to the main course. After the appetizer from Sri Rao, we are now proceeding to the main course. I have the pleasure of inviting Puneet Ozaji to deliver this session's lecture on the Gita. A quick introduction to Puneetji. Puneetji works in the maritime industry and is now mostly involved in teaching a course on geopolitical risks and their impact on shipping at various business schools around the world. Mr. Oza is a very keen sadhak, and his interest in spirituality was kindled initially through his interactions with his father, late Sri B.M. Oza, who was closely associated with the Aurobindo Society in Pondicherry. Initial interest in the Bhagavad Gita came through discussions on Sri Aurobindo's book, Essays on the Gita. Over the past 8 years, Sri Oza has been involved with the Gita Parivar Satsang group, reading and discussing Bhagavad Gita every week. And those discussions have led him to publish a book, Gito Me Gita, in which Mr. Oza has been able to summarize every chapter of the Gita into a simple Hindi poem. The book has been donated to various schools around India. The idea being that young minds will be able to absorb Gita's learnings through simple poems. Osaji, it's our pleasure and a privilege to have you here. The floor is yours. We're looking forward to your lecture on the Gita.
Thank you so much, Anandji. Thank you very much. Apologies that my throat is a little bit sour, but I will definitely be still happy to continue. I've been looking forward to this opportunity. I'm very thankful for any opportunity, like Mr. Rao said, to discuss and talk about the Bhagavad Gita. I would like to thank Gita Jayanti for this opportunity. And I think it's a great opportunity for me also to study and learn more about the chapter 17 a little bit more in detail. And I think that's the beauty of the Gita. The more you read, the more you realize. I still remember many years ago, one of Swami Chinmayanand's devotees was proudly telling Swami Chinmayanand, saying that we've been through the Gita 5 times or 6 times. But Swami Chinmayanand's question was, that's okay, but how many times has the Gita gone through you, rather than you going through the Gita? So I think that's the real essence of the ability to continue to interact with the Gita and understand it. Before I launch into the chapter 17, I just wanted to mention that in my own personal opinion, whatever I have picked up, I find Gita to be very powerful. And that's because of 4 aspects which I think Gita is unique in the actual set of shastras that are out there. The first part is practicality. I think a lot of the Gita's concepts, the idea of karma yoga, the idea of even Gyan Yoga and Bhakti Yoga are all very practical. Something that all of us follow subconsciously all the time. If you look at it, you probably will see Gita around you all around. The second part is the simplicity. I think the Vedas and the Karma Kandas are, of course, and Upanishads as well are very deep. Gita has tried to simplify that, and that I think is a huge achievement in itself. The third aspect is relatability. I think, as this very chapter says, it talks about aspects which are all our daily aspects, including the ahar, something that we do as a natural action. So it's relatable. It's something which we can actually relate to when Gita talks about certain aspects of life. They are all something that we see around us all the time. And finally, the fourth aspect is scalability. So, whatever Gita teaches, whatever Gita does, is something that can be applied across the entire life spectrum. Like Mr. Rao said, Sri Aurobindo himself has said that life is yoga. So, at the end of the day, really, it's about the ability to apply these concepts across the entire spectrum of life, not just yours, but even influencing other people. So, I think Gita Jayanti is doing an amazing work in that respect of creating that scale. And I'm so thankful to be a part of a small support effort of that as well. So, chapter 17 of the Gita, titled Shraddha Traya Vibhag Yoga, or the Yoga of the Division of Threefold Faith, is more about Sri Krishna's teaching on the nature of faith, and how it manifests through these three fundamental qualities, the gunas, the sattva, rajas, and tamas, which he has already described in detail in the Gunatraya Vibhag Yoga. This chapter is more like a bridge between the philosophical discussions which have happened earlier in the chapter. I think the sequential aspects of Gita is extremely valuable to understand. You could not have had a Vishwarup Darshan Yoga till the time Bhagwan ji had actually managed to create the first 10 chapters and instill this idea of his nature in Arjuna's mind, and therefore Vishwarup Darshan becomes logical in the 11th chapter, and immediately after that, the Bhakti Yoga follows. So, this is the way sequential things are very important. But this chapter, as Mr. Rao also mentioned, is a very practical chapter. It actually acts as a bridge between those philosophical discussions and the practical guidance that follows in terms of how one can transform oneself, how one's inner nature is the crucial aspect in determining spiritual practices, your dietary choices, your worship methods, and everything that you do around you. So that I think is one of the things that must be kept in mind when we talk about the chapter. The other aspect is the chapter. Every chapter, nearly every chapter of Gita actually starts with a question from Arjuna. And that, if you notice, is something that I have noticed, is that the questions are very simple questions that we would actually have in our mind. So Arjun's questions are actually very simple, very common understanding, saying this is how I want to understand about the Gita, curiosity, which leads to these questions, while the answers are very deep, and answers are not just answers for the question itself, but going into a much bigger arena that God actually does that. So in this chapter as well, it begins with Arjuna's question saying, those who worship with faith, who have the faith, they have the nishtha, but they don't follow the scriptural injunctions. What about their nishtha? How does that work as such? And this is something which is quite common. I mean, we all may not follow the scriptures on a day-to-day basis, but we have faith, and we actually do worship the Lord with faith. But we don't follow the scriptural injunctions, and scriptural injunctions could be also lost over a period of time. And Gita Jayanti is doing an amazing work, but other organizations also doing amazing work. But still, not everybody is aware of the scriptural injunctions like in the past years. And Arjuna wants Sri Krishna to clarify the spiritual status of these devotees, because are they devotees? What kind of devotees are there? And whether the worship actually has any value. And that's a fundamental question. Are we going to have to do it exactly this way or no other way? So, my way or highway kind of a thing. And that's important for us to understand whether we are going in the right direction. And this is a fundamental tension between the formal religious observance that is there and the devotion that may not conform to these orthodox practices. This is something that we deal in life every day. Now, before I go into what Lord said to Arjuna, I think it's also good to talk a little bit about what Sri Aurobindo says about this idea. He's the one of the few people that I've read who actually deals with this idea of what following the Shastras means. In the essays on Gita, and that's very chapter which Sri Rao talked about, Sri Aurobindo talks about the fact that the action controlled by Shastra is an outcome of intellectual, ethical, aesthetic, social, and religious culture. So it's something which has happened over a period of time. And it embodies an attempt to a certain right living, harmony, and right order, and is evidently an effort, more or less advanced according to circumstances, of the sattvic element in the man to overtop, regulate, control, or guide, where it must be admitted his rajasic or tamasic egoism. So what this shastra is actually doing is giving you a prescribed way so that you can get your sattvic guna to be the dominant guna eventually and take control of the rajasic and the tamasic tendencies. You will never get rid of rajasic and tamasic completely, although Sri Aurobindo later on talks about going beyond the gunas as well. But in general, what the idea of the Shastra or Shastra based injunctions is to really uplift the sattvic guna in us so that we can get the so that is why it's important. That's why Arjun's question is quite logical as such. And then, of course, the next question would be if the Shastras are so important and they are so recommended to be taken, then why would one not follow this route? One should always follow this route because this is the best route available and it lifts the sattvic guna in you. And in this, Sri Aurobindo says in Essays on Gita that this may happen. Why you don't follow the Shastras is because the established Shastras may cease to be a living thing or degenerates or stiffens into a mass of customs and conventions. These examples we have seen in past ourselves. Things have actually been because of external circumstances in India and other places. We have actually had a different set of practices evolve over a period of time, which may not be the Shastras, which may be a slightly different version of it. And obviously, that may not be something that appeals to everybody. So this is why Arjun's question is important. The Arjun's question is very clear. Then what happens if you don't follow such a path but still worship with faith? Now again, Gita's practicality and relatability shines through in this question, but also in the answer. So Shri Krishna is responding very clearly that by explaining all beings possess a faith of some kind, and a faith is an inherent quality of the consciousness itself. So this is very important to understand that the faith is something that is actually creating us in essence. We are who the faith is. And the word used in Gita is Shraddha. And, I mentioned the fact that I have written these poems. And a lot of people have asked me saying, would you like to write these poems in English? But the challenge with English as a language is sometimes it does not do justice to the depth of the word, which is in Sanskrit or in other Indian languages. So Shraddha is another such word. Shraddha, although it's translated into English as faith, but the word faith does not do it justice. I think Shraddha is much more deeper than faith. It's something deep within your heart, something that you don't question, something that is basically guiding you every single minute, every single second of your life, and something that you identify with and which you use to achieve your end goal, which is always happiness. So, this is something that must be kept in mind. It's really, really important to understand that Shraddha is a very deep thing. But more importantly, what Shraddha does is it prompts action. It actually allows you and guides you to act according to your Shraddha. It influences behavior. How you behave is based on your Shraddha and something that keeps you strong, steadfast, and focused. So this is something that I heard and learned from the book on Bhagavad Gita by Eknath Eshwaran, another lovely book, and he talks about the fact that Shraddha is something which is way beyond faith. Faith is probably a superficial description, but Shraddha is way deeper and way beyond just the word faith itself. And one of the examples which I'd heard in one of the Vedanta podcast was really amazing, saying, when you are in a dark room and you have a torch with you and you have the torch on, you do not question that there are batteries in the torch. You have complete faith that you are having batteries and that is why the light is shining in the room. This is why, if you actually ask somebody, can you show me the batteries, then the light will go away anyway because you have to take the batteries out. But you are 100% convinced that the batteries exist and the torch is providing the light that is needed to lit up the room. So this is the kind of faith, the Shraddha that we talk about, right? The Brihadaranyaka Upanishads, which I love a quote from it, is Kamamaya eva yam purusha iti sa yatha kamo bhavati tat kritu bhavati. Yat kritur bhavati tat karma kurute, yat karma kurute, tadbhi sampadhyate. As you are what your deep driving desire is, and as your desire is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. And as your deed is, so is your destiny. So, this is where this idea of the deep driving desire is also coming from the Shraddha. It's something that comes from the Shraddha. That's where your desire is actually appearing. And and in this case of Gita itself, this particular line in the, I think in the third shloka of this chapter, Shraddha Mayo Yam Purusho Yat Shraddha Sa Eva Saha. So basically, he is that Shraddha and that is him. So at the end of the day, it's so assimilated with you, and which is why I wanted to emphasize on this, that Shraddha is something which needs to be very consciously seen and felt by us as to what our Shraddha is. We also need to cultivate it. We also need to make sure that we actually take it into the right direction. Now, Sri Krishna has very clearly said in the answer, saying that the faith or the Shraddha takes these three different forms based on the predominant guna or the quality of the nature that influences the individual, right? So rather than just dismissing this non-scriptural worship, or not the shastra based worship, is just dismissing as a not a good idea. He actually provides a framework as to why people with different faiths and different spiritual outcomes have eventually governing the inner nature, the gunas which are actually governing them. So faith of all humans conform to the nature of their mind, and all people possess faith, and whatever the nature of faith, that is verily what they are. So this is exactly what Sri Krishna has said. And he clearly categorizes the three types of Shraddha. The Sattvic Shraddha, the faith in goodness. So those possessed in Sattvic faith, Sri Krishna says, worship the gods, the devas. So the divine beings, the devas, are essentially the cosmic principles. They are the higher consciousness. They are probably the people who control certain natural aspects. And the faith of these Sattvic Shraddhalus is characterized by clarity, wisdom, natural inclination towards righteousness, right? So these individuals are then drawn to those practices which purify the mind and elevate the consciousness. And we always see them seeking the truth and see the spiritual illumination through their devotional activity. So their entire goal is effectively to try and reach that divine and essentially seek him at every step of the Shraddha based acts that they are performing. Now, Rajasic faith, the faith in the passion, the Rajasic Shraddha, are it's a very controversial thing. I didn't understand it the first time I read it, that they typically worship demigods and spirits and, yakshas and rakshasas. But yakshas and rakshasas are basically, in our mind, having heard these children's stories all our lives, of rakshasas being negative and villains in some ways. The rakshasas and yakshas are essentially symbols of wealth and power. So even in Mahabharata, there is a space where the Pandavas go to a lake and they want to drink water, and the Yaksha comes out and says he wants to ask a few questions in order to have the ability for him to be allowing Arjuna or Pandavas to drink water from that lake. So they are symbols of wealth and power, and they can grant material benefits and fulfill material desires. So the Rajasic faith, Rajasic Shraddha, is driven by the ambition, by this pursuit of power, the desire for the worldly success. And this is something that we, I think, identify a lot more with. Most of the time, this is how we are, because we are not, as I said, as Mr. Rao said, not yet evolved further up as a human being as well. So we have a lot of work to do. Their devotion is genuine. The Rajasic Shraddhalu's devotion is also genuine, but their motivation is now centered towards personal goals and material advantages. So this is where there's a big difference between Sattvic and the Rajasic. Now, Tamasic, on the other hand, they worship ghosts through their Shraddha and acts spirits of the deceased or even negative entities. Now, the reason why they say this is because not because they actually worship the bhoot pret as they call it. It's because those negative entities, those spirits don't have any active means to perform any tasks at all. So they are useless. So they are going after completely useless pursuits, and that obviously then involves things or practices which are harmful, ignorant, superstitious, fearful, and not only do they cause suffering to themselves, but they also cause suffering to others through these kind of practices. So this is the one that we definitely do not need to have, and we must try and ensure that we don't fall into the tamasic shraddha at all. But more importantly for me, why is Sri Krishna, in my mind, why is he talking about these three gunas? So all the three gunas are in present in us. They are all in us at the end of the day. It's not that we are one person is only tamasic, one person is only rajasic, or one person is only sattvic. They are different proportions of the gunas. And the predominant guna, which is the majority of the guna present in us at the time, makes us take on that guna's attitude and the mental bhav, the bhav that we do our work with. So the beauty of this particular shloka is that it gives you an assurance from God that you can move from lower to higher. Everyone can improve. Everyone can move towards a higher nature. That evolution is possible. And that for me is very important, that this assurance from God that I am as much a part of a tamasic person as I'm a part of the rajasic and a sattvic person, predominant sattvic person, is also a great assurance that God is with us all through, all the way. Even though we may be performing tamasic shraddhalu acts at some point of time, we need to be able to get with His help evolve into the Rajasic and eventually into Sattvic space as well. So that I think is a very reassuring space about this particular shloka. If you read more deep into it, I think this is a great assurance from God. In fact, the entire Gita is full of so many direct assurances from God that I've not seen many scriptures able to give you such direct assurances in past. And I think it's amazing to see that one of the assurances is this, that I am in all of you. And that's really what it is interesting. The next set of shlokas talk about the threefold division of food or ahar, or as Mr. Rao said, not just the food, but everything that we actually consume. It's also one of the most practical and detailed sections of the chapter 17. And it's important to note here, a lot of people make that mistake. I made that mistake very early when I was studying the Gita, of thinking that the food itself, the ahar itself, is sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. The food or the ahar itself is never rajasic, tamasic, or rajasic. The attitude and the mental bhav which attracts you to such food or such ahar is actually sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. So that is a very big distinction which must be made in your mind. No food is good or bad on its own. It's the bhav with which you actually look at it or you crave for it is important. So again, you can see that the sattvic ahar, when it's mentioned in this shloka, it talks about items which increase life, purity, strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. So the goal is you want to basically make sure that you continue to live and try to seek the divine and continue to try and be one with Him all the way through. So you have all the idea to try and make sure that you eat foods which are natural or have ahar which is natural, wholesome, pure, and strong. It makes you stronger. So a sattvic person's goal is very clear. He wants to eat a healthy and pure life, consume healthy and pure things. So the goal is very much in line with that goal, the food or the ahar is chosen. Rajasic food, on the other hand, Sri Krishna mentions about the fact that they are excessively bitter, sour, salty, hot, pungent, dry, or burning. Now, he's very clear that they will cause pain, they will cause distress and disease. We have actually experienced that with actual food itself, but also in terms of thoughts. You can see that if you actually have these kind of thoughts which are bitter, which are burning in some cases, which can be thoughts can be burning as well, you will stimulate passion and restlessness. Your mind gets agitated, and it's very difficult to control the spiritual practice by having consuming these kind of food. So this is something which is a very practical understanding of it. And on tamasic side, you go really, really low, and obviously you are attracted to stale, tasteless, decomposed, impure items, and that means, it may be, there is a timeline given in terms of the number of hours that they should be cooked, but in general, it's about unclean food that is basically not clean, not pure, something which is not going to do any good to you at all. And we must actually try and consciously avoid these kind of foods, because they promote ignorance, they promote laziness, they promote spiritual inertia that we cannot afford. We have to actually be very alert to this kind of food. Then next, Sri Krishna extends his analysis of ahar to various other forms of religious practices and austerity. Um, so again, the idea is very practical, very relatable. The more that Sri Krishna explains from a daily life and its practices perspective, the more impactful this becomes for our in our life. We can practice it much, much more easily, rather than having just a great shastra to read and just move on. This is something that we can actually immediately implement in our life. So he talks about sattvic worship, and he talks about the fact that it's characterized by sincerity. The Sattvic Bhakt is sincere, and it must be performed according to scriptural guidelines, because again, I mentioned scriptural guidelines are basically a result of many, many years in culture assimilation of what is the best way to uplift our Sattvic guna in us. And there should not be any expectation or material reward expectation at the end of the day, because the minute you bring that into it, then it pollutes that sattvic activity very quickly. And it must be offered with love and devotion, something that you must be selflessly willing to offer, and it should be done with a clean heart, that you must do it. This actually helps you purify your heart tremendously. When you do an activity like this, I'm sure all of us have done certain activities at certain point of time where we have actually just gone and done it because we love it and we really want to please the God, and we just give it the best we can, and we find ourselves to be extremely happy and blissful after doing such activity. The rajasic activity or the rajasic worship is performed with expectation of material gains, recognition, or you want to demonstrate your religiosity to others. So rituals may be there. You may still follow all the scriptures. You may actually have money, and you may actually have, let's say, love and devotion also in some ways. But because of the expectation, because of the material aspect of it, it actually creates a rajasic tendency, and the guna of rajas comes higher in that space for you. And of course, the last one is something which is done without any scriptural knowledge at all, total ignorance of the scriptural knowledge or practices, harming either yourself or others, motivated by malice and superstition. Actually, they are the ones which are the ones we need to be very careful to avoid at all costs. Those are the tamasic worship aspects. So this is something which is immediately identifiable again by us, because we have seen these examples all around us. Then he comes to, before I go to the next aspect of yagna, dana, and tapas. I'd just like to mention that what do these terms mean to me, and how I've kind of come to understand it. So sacrifice is something that you perform willingly. You cannot perform sacrifice unless you're doing it willingly. If you're forced to do something, that cannot be considered a sacrifice ever, right? So every task that you perform actually, and every act that you perform as a yagna, is a sacrifice to him. If you are, and as Mr. Rao mentioned, every human act can actually be transformed into a sacrifice to the divine. That's the beauty of it. You don't need to run away from anywhere, and you need to do it in the right spirit, right? So bhav is very important. And dana is something which actually is according to me only possible when you have earned or got something and you are partaking with it willingly. You are doing dan because you actually have something in your possession and you are willing to share that, or you're willing to give it away, and you're actually able to do it and willing to do it willingly at the end of the day. Now, when can that situation happen? When can you actually willingly give away what you have? It's only when you're convinced of God's assurance of Yogakshema Vahamyaham. Yogakshema Vahamyaham, that He will take care of what you need, and then He will protect what is needed for you as well. And that when dan becomes a second nature. You do not do dan unless you are convinced about Yogakshema Vahamyam. Yogakshema Vahamyam is the fundamental thing which actually is giving you the ability to do the dan in the right spirit. And finally, you have austerity and tapas. This is something that God describes in detail. He talks about the three kinds of action, of speech, and of mind, three types of tapas. And he turns the entire understanding, at least in my understanding before I read the Gita for the first time, he turns the entire understanding upside down. In most cases, we have only thought of tapasya as something which is physical and involves body and actions. One of the most immediate images that come to my mind is the Mahatma Gandhi's three monkeys. Do not see evil, do not hear evil, do not speak evil. But God takes it even much further than that. He's covered the concept of gunas in the 14th chapter in detail. And then he's talked about the demonic and divine qualities in the 16th chapter. And he uses these concepts like ahimsa, non-violence, and shauch, purity and cleanliness, to great effect in changing the way our idea and understanding of tapas is. That action, speech, and mind all need to be actually austere in the way it is. And Sri Krishna provides very detailed guidance in these shlokas about the proper performance of sacrifice, the yagna, charity, dana, and austerity, tapas, how they can be performed in these three modes. The modes are the fundamental aspect of our life. We have to accept that all of us have three gunas in us. We have to really endeavor to basically uplift the sattva as much as we can. So sattvic people approach these things with these practices with a matter of duty. They don't want any attachment to the results. They are just the karmanyavadikaraste is a simple concept with proper understanding of the purpose, why they're doing it, and genuine spiritual intention. And this is going to help not just the person who's actually performing these things, but also for whom this is being performed. So it's actually in the Lok Sangra. It's actually something which helps the humanity as a whole. Rajasic, on the other hand, has expectation of reward, recognition, reciprocal benefit. What's in it for me? This is a classic Rajasic approach. And while these practices have some positive effects, Bhagwanji says, the spiritual value is limited because they're all self-serving. They will only take you so much and no further. And of course, if you perform these practices with ignorance, you perform them with causing harm to either yourself or other people, and you are motivated by spite, then any such practice, you're doing these dan, you're doing austerity, you're doing the yagya with this negative attitude, then you will create negative karma and you will bind the individual to the lower states of consciousness. So this is something which is actually having a negative impact. It's not just 0 marks for a wrong question, it's negative marking for the wrong question. So tamasic questions are basically being answered in that way. And now we kind of coming to the last part, which is the Om Tat Sat. So once the practical aspects are done, Gita has actually been one of the most revolutionary spaces, because before Gita, the common man could not connect to God in theory without the Vedas and understanding the Vedas. And they required very specific understanding, a very deep understanding. And that's why it was let's say, the domain of the learned who actually had access to become mediums between common people and God. Gita broke those barriers down. They completely revolutionized the way this actual connectivity between us and God is. And that is something that we even do today. We all the time use, like even in this chapter, every chapter that we finish, we have this last shloka, Om Tat Satiti, right? So this is how the Om Tat Sat is a very much an integral part of everything that we do. And gone into the practical aspects, now Bhagwanji shows us that correct method to perform these aspects is also listed here. all of us have access to these things. All of us have access to these aspects. And he guides all the way Arjun through these aspects as such. They are symbolic representation, he says, of the supreme absolute truth from the beginning of creation. And of course, therefore, performing the acts of sacrifice, offering charity, or undertaking penance, the expounders of Veda always begin by uttering Om, which means all of us can begin it by uttering Om. That is the starting point of the Vedic injunctions. And who don't want rewards, who have no expectations, they want to be free from material entanglements, they also utter the word Tat. And Tat basically is that. So you're basically offering, starting with Om, offering it Tat, and that act of austerity, sacrifice, charity, yagya is essentially now basically going straight directly to the Supreme. And that is the Tat, the power of Tat, that you're acknowledging that this is the offering going to Tat. And then, of course, you have Sat. And Sat means eternal existence and goodness. So Sri Krishna says that Arjun, this is also describing every single auspicious action in the world is Sat. And once you actually have the establishment of all these aspects of sacrifice and penance and charity, you will see that Sat is something that is prevailing or pervading all these aspects. So, any act, if it is done in the right attitude, in the right manner, without expectations, in the right manner, you will find that with the bhav, it will actually have the impact of being a Sat action. So if you're not doing it with a Shraddha, you're not doing it with these proper aspects, you will find them to be asat. And they are not just useless actions in this world. They will not help you now, but they will not help you in future in any other world in there as well. So this chapter in my mind has actually got a very deep meaning, a teaching aspect through practical aspects, through practical concepts. There is so much of knowledge that is actually being pushed out there. The profound teaching is that the spiritual practice is not just the external conformity to religious rules, not just following the scriptural injunctions blindly and without understanding them, without any kind of bhav, but it's the quality of consciousness that motivates you and permeates your actions, right? So the same activity, whether it is worship, whether it is eating, whether it's ahar, whether it's charity, anything that you do can have very different spiritual consequences depending on your bhav and your guna that is predominantly driving your nature. You are what your Shraddha is, right? This chapter is a mirror for sincere seekers, I believe, to examine our own motivations. Let's look at finding out what is our approach today. Are we predominantly sattvic, predominantly rajasic, predominantly tamasic? How do we kind of evolve ourselves towards a higher level, right? And it's a very practical chapter, elevating one's consciousness into daily life and choices that we make in daily life, but also seeing a very deep meaning in those choices that we make. Just not talking about the choices on the periphery, but going further into it. And it's as Mr. Rao rightly mentioned, it's about evolution. At the end of the day, true spiritual progress means you're slowly moving from tamasic to rajasic to sattvic and then beyond the gunas at the end of the day, right? So that kind of is the summary. I would just like to end, if with your permission. I've written 19 poems in that book that I've given. It's in Hindi. The Gita chapter poems I've not been able to translate into English, but my learning from Gita, I have been able to translate the 19th poem into an English poem. So if it's okay with you, I will just read out this poem, which I've written, a very small poem of just 10 stanzas, and then I will end it with that. So my learning from Gita. As I sat pondering what life learnings has the Gita imparted, least of all, a journey of self discovery in me it has started. A realization that I too, like all others, am an offspring of the Lord, and this human life is a devotional adventure, a journey to his abode. Life and death are but events of the body. In God does the eternal soul rest. The path leading out of the jungle of Maya goes right through that very forest. The worldly home collapses not due to its construction but its weak foundation. Having sown bad karmas and expecting a crop of good results will simply lead to frustration. In the race for actions, results, attachment, and grudges, a hollow win is same as a loss. Unattached actions combined with knowledge and devotion is the only way to get across. Desires, anger, and greed, these three, Gita says, lead you straight to hell. Self introspection, chants, and interaction with good souls are the only ways that these evils will quell. As each day of Gita sinks into me, these eyes are slowly opening to the divine. Years of false learning is washing away, just like a mirror clean begins to shine. A fearlessness has entered into me, knowing that my Lord is with me at all times. The action are yours, but the results are His, just as you don't control the sound of wind chimes. A steadfastness has dawned on this path, a will never to deviate from the divine destination. It may take one life or several to fulfill this. Patience and perseverance are the key without sorrow or trepidation. Let us remove these perceptions of good and bad from our hearts and mind. Let us remove these perceptions of good and bad from our hearts and mind. If we did not get something, it is His will, and if we did, it is because He is most kind. Thank you so much. Hari Om. I'm just putting the poem on the chat. So I think there is there is an there I need to split it into two because the chat doesn't allow that many words to come at the same time. Yeah. Thank you so much, Anandji, Mr. Rao, all of you. Thanks so much for all your support, and it was an amazing experience for me. God has been very kind.
Thank you so much, Puneetji. It's a delight to hear. I want to open up to question and answer so that we can get the benefit of your presence a little bit more. So I'm just opening up to the audience online. If you have a question for Puneetji, please unmute, please state your question, or you can also put it on chat. The choice is yours. So please go ahead and make use of this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan, also for the opportunity. It was really nice for allowing me to introspect and also learn while doing that. Thank you. Happy to connect with anybody, and more importantly, if anybody has questions, comments, or even uh, ideas or concepts that I might have missed out, please do feel free.
So the question from Srinivasan ji, how to develop the bhav to move from tamasic to sattvic?
So in my own experience, I can say that I've after the Gita and reading the Gita, I have become more conscious about the actions that I take. I evaluated with this benchmark that God has set us in the Gita, saying that first and foremost, you must acknowledge that it is not your power that is performing the action. It is God's action, God's power that is performing the action. So that immediately transforms you from being the doer to basically being an executor or medium. And he uses that word sabyasacha, sabyasachi also in that sense. So he's basically, the concept of medium is the first thing that comes to you. The second thing is, what do you expect out of it? Because one of the biggest challenges is to understand what do you expect. And you can have ambitions, you can have aspirations, as Mr. Rao also said. You can actually have a view in your mind, a northern light that you need to reach, but you don't have any control, and you must accept the fact that you don't have control. I remember the receptivity is so important in spirituality. My dad used to say, used to quote Sri Ramakrishna, saying that the winds of grace are always blowing. It's just that you have not raised your sail in your boat, because that's why you're not moving. The minute you raise your sail, the movement happens, and I think the bhav is very much to do with that receptivity. So I think the two aspects: one is the acceptance and then identification that you're not the doer. The God's power is actually driving this entire thing. And secondly, what kind of expectations can you have when you don't have any control? So those two things, I think, change your bhav very quickly in my mind. Yeah. And of course, a sacrifice to God everything that you do, which I think has always been the case. In fact, if you look at our daily lives, even at dialogues in movies, they always have this dialogue saying, "Bhagwan ka diya sab kuch hai hamare paas." Bhagwan ka diya means you're acknowledging that it's not yours; it's given by God. And on top of that, you also say, ki, whatever I've got, before I actually eat something, I'm going to give it to God, and then eat it as a prasad. All these factors, all these actions are actually changing your bhav from the within. And especially when children see, grandparents especially are very important in this case. The grandchildren learn all these things as they see the grandparents, and values, and the bhav gets transformed from generation to generation. So that's all I can say. Yeah. Anybody else has any comments, please feel free. Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan.
Any other questions? This is a great time. Please do put it in chat, or please feel free to unmute and ask your question.
Hello, yes? Yes?
Mr.
Okay, you
Rao,
come.
Mr. Rao is muted. But Mr. Rao, this is Sri Aurobindo 101. I think if you have time, maybe you can also elaborate on Sri Aurobindo's statement, "Life is yoga." I would love to hear your thoughts on it as well, but I will only try and share the ones that I learned from my dad. But please, if you can elaborate something on from your side, and then I can chip in.
You're asking me a hard one. See, let me put it as simple as I can. Just as the Gita, Sri Aurobindo wrote a very small book, apart from his 30 plus volumes. And that small book is called The Mother,
Yes.
which is the Divine Mother, in which he has put all of your yoga in a small nutshell. He says it constantly about aspiration, rejection, and surrender.
Right.
Without aspiration, nothing happens. Rejection is being conscious. If you are unconscious, you cannot reject the negative things that come into it. It's just like eating tamasic food. Don't feed the mind some tamasic food or
True.
other things.
Yes.
Constantly being on the watch is the rejection. And ultimately, you have to fully surrender. If you go to any divinity and submit yourself and say, I want this, but God, I will give you the key result areas and I want to show you, you have to perform according to my key result areas. No, doesn't work. You have to fully submit yourself. He is going to define your key result area and your results also. Not only that. Then you just, what is your role? You have to submit yourself fully. And that submission is called surrender. It's a total surrender.
Absolutely.
then that triple forces will work towards your change. Otherwise, you will remain to be still trying. And that's nothing wrong about it. We
No,
should
no.
feel we are all, as I call it, as Shivendra said somewhere, human being is a work in progress and is a constant work in progress.
Yes.
So it's nothing to be, you know, ashamed of. That's the way we are. We are all in the process and we are all works in progress. So these
Absolutely.
periodic
I'm so happy that you said that because if you look at even,
periodically,
tell
yeah,
me, sir.
when we discuss collectively, that is helpful because we realize that I'm not alone on the road. There's
Exactly.
somebody before and behind me also.
So these opportunities like today of discussing the chapter 17 and the Gita are another example of the fact that we are progressing. Because
Yes.
in my mind, everything, and that is the life is yoga, according to me, is that everything that you see around you must be converted into a act or a support system to reach the divine or to evolve towards the divine. And I think that's the surrender part that you mentioned, Mr. Rao. Quite true. In fact, I would like to say just if I look back at lives of people, myself as well, there has been a pattern. There has been a specific set of acts which have actually happened for me to evolve to where I am today. And going further, I think God will ensure more actions happen for me to evolve further. That complete Shraddha is something which is automatically telling you that your life itself is a yogic process at the end of the day. And it actually acts like that. A lot of people think that, Mr. Rav, you mentioned as well, that we do this spirituality Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday to Friday, we have a different life. The whole life is basically one life. We can't separate it out. And that, I
I
think,
think
is one of the things which is important to understand and appreciate. So I think
there's a
that is
nice
what life.
question.
Yeah.
There's a nice question by Mr. Ravi here. You are still there, Mr. Ravi?
Yes, he's the one who's asked that question.
Life
That's
is all life is yoga. Okay,
that's
let
what
me
he
just,
asked.
since you cued me on
Yes.
it, Punit.
Yes.
All life is yoga is something which Govinda said more often than once.
Right.
And why it is said is that only thing is we may be conscious or unconscious, life carries on.
True.
And it is not that your soul is there within you once and sometimes it is not. No, it is already there all the time. The soul is sitting inside you.
Very
And
true.
it is called the witness.
Yes.
Witness is something which is quietly looking and recording what is happening. And it is taking the whole life's journey. There is nothing in your whole life that your soul has not witnessed you. It has seen from beginning to end.
Correct.
And there is also this whole belief that after you are dead and gone, the soul retreats back to the divine and it actually takes the whole experience of a lifetime before it decides to come back again and take another birth. So that is the way the soul evolves, is what I have read. I haven't experienced to be able to say, but life of all life is yoga is nothing to be rejected. Everything is going on. Some consciously, some unconsciously is going
Precisely.
on.
True.
That's all I can say. Okay.
Absolutely. Well explained. Lovely, lovely. It's so true. And it makes us very circumspect and also humble in terms of the fact that if we are seeing things happen around us, we should simply not even think about taking credit for anything because we don't have any ability to take that credit also. Because we have been given a particular task and we are just carrying it out with the powers given to us. So it's very amazing that we get the chance. So hopefully, Raviji, you have got more clarity now, but that is exactly why I was referring to life is yoga as Sri Arvindo's comment on a continuous basis in multiple spaces, like Mr. Rao has said. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you both Punitji and Ravji. While we are waiting for more questions, I'll use this opportunity to just share about the upcoming event
Sure.
of Gita Jayanti. And this is the Sampurna Gita Parayan on Lokshada Ekadashi Day, which is coming up very, very shortly. The 1st of December, just 2 weeks to go. We are going to chant all the 18 chapters of Gita. They are expecting, close to 300, 400 people to join in. It's a PGP hall. Please do join in. It's on a working day, but it's in the evening. So please join whenever you can. Your participation, your presence is really, really important. So please do spread the word to your friends and family. If you haven't registered yet, please register so that we can make necessary logistic arrangements. I do want to remind everyone that before we have the Moksha Ekadashi day, we are also going to have our final Gita Parayan and Satsang on the 29th of November at 10:30, where we will be chanting chapter 18, and we will also be having a lecture on chapter 18. So please do join us for the next online Parayan and for the face-to-face or in-person Sampurna Gita. The Sampurna Gita Parayan is not online, it is in person, so please join us in person. Let me stop my sharing and invite any other questions which the audience might have.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Hari Om. Thank you
Thanks
so
a lot,
much.
Ravji, for your kind presence and sharing the words of the wisdom, especially
Thank you.
the Arvindo's one. That was very beautiful. And I like your thing. We have expiry date, but not Gita. That is very
true.
Not many people realize that we have expiry date. We see product expiry. That's why sometimes I used to say, those days I wrote a small poem also. We are travelers in a train with the tickets in the hand, but destination is not printed there. Nobody knows when we are going to get off. That's our life.
But also, if we had known and if we know our expiry date, life is no longer interesting. Huh?
Yeah.
It is said, if you know when you're going to go, you're going to give up everything you're doing today.
In fact, the mystery is the one which keeps the...
You have to continue to live till the last moment as if you're going to live forever.
True.
And forever, you have to be conscious that you're not going to live forever.
Very true. Very true.
That is the complexity of our life, isn't it?
Absolutely. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Lovely.
Thank you so much.
Nice to see you.
I'm hearing you for the first time. You're very good.
Thank you very much.
I never saw
God has
you
been very
stumbling
kind.
for any word at any point of time. It was free flow, coming out very beautifully. Like I mentioned in my message, it shows that how deep Gita has gone in your mind and heart. Otherwise, this type of flow cannot possible. Because people, if it is a prepared lecture, it will not be like this.
Thank you so much. I think it's really God's blessing. We are very happy.
I could also thank Ravji for introducing you. So you will be one of our panelists from next year onwards.
Please, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Mr. Rao. And thank you for all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We will conclude with just closing prayers.
Yes.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om, Tat Sat. Thank you, everyone. See you at the next online Gita Parayan.
Just a minute.
Thank you so much.
We'd like to thank not only Punitji and Raoji, also our chanters, Arjun and Rama Guruji for doing the Parayan, as well as Anand Sansegarji, who has been conducting the sessions diligently for all the 11 sessions so far. Thank you, Anandji. And I know he is somewhere busy at the moment, yet he has taken the time off to be present here. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Very, very, very noble. Thank you. Thanks a lot.